change your bad habit to a good habit. Sound good? Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. I'm here today to tell you about a concept called the habit loop. I found out about this probably about a year ago, and I thought it was very interesting because it's a way to identify components of your bad habits and find a way to actually change them from bad to good. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through the three components of this habit loop, the science behind it, and then we're going to go through a procedure where a person is going to change from a good to a bad habit. And hopefully by the end of my presentation, we'll all have the tools to be able to go in and get some good habits instead of some bad. I have a quote for you, and it is from a website called habitica.wikia.com. And the quote is, "The habit loop is a neurological loop that governs any habit." I remembered it. Good for me. The important thing that we need to know, though, is three things: the cue, the routine, and the reward. Because once we understand those three components of this habit loop, then we're on our way to changing our bad habits. Now, there is some science behind this, and it's from MIT. The researchers there were watching rats in a maze, put the cheese at the end, and they go through and try to find it. And they noticed that when the rats were first learning how to go through the maze, the part of their brain that they were using was something called the cerebral cortex, the thinking part of the brain. But after a while, they kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. They stopped using their cerebral cortex, and they started using a part of the brain called the primitive basal ganglia. And that is the part of the brain that we use for automatic things that we don't even have to think about. Walking, riding a bike, or in my case, when I drive home on the 400 and I take that exit to get home, I don't remember doing it, but I did it because I got home. It's automatic things, and that is the part where the habits are housed, and that's where we're going to be changing that part of our brain. The first thing you need to know is, and I have some handouts, by the way, if you want to flip them over, you have to identify the habit loop, and this is a nice diagram that I got from someone named Charles Duhigg, who is an author of something called The Power of Habit. And what he did was, he had a bad habit that he wanted to change. But he didn't know what the cue was, and he didn't know what the reward was. So that's the first part of changing. Now the cue is what spurs you to do the habit in the first place. It might be a smell or a person, a time, or a sound. In my case, when I hear the music that's played by the ice cream truck as it comes around the corner, I gotta get an ice cream. I have to, and that's my cue. Now a routine, of course, is usually the bad habit. In my case, it's going down and buying that ice cream bar even though I don't really need it. And the reward is what you get out of doing this in the first place. Sometimes it's not that easy. You would think that maybe I'm hungry for that ice cream. Maybe I need a sugar rush. Or maybe the guy who's in the ice cream truck is really cute. You don't know what my reward is yet. So in Charles's case, he had a habit of at 3:30 every day, he got up from his desk, he walked down to the cafeteria, and he bought a chocolate chip cookie. And then he went and talked to all his friends. And he decided that that was a bad habit because his wife pointed out that he was putting on some pounds and maybe he should lay off the chocolate chip cookies. But in order to change this habit, he had to identify the cue, the routine, and the reward. So what he did was, first he decided to find the reward because the routine was obvious, going down and buying that cookie. But what was he getting out of it? Now the reward, how he found it was, he decided decided to change the routine just for a couple days. Well, instead of buying that cookie, he went out for a walk one day. And when he came back, he wrote down how he felt. Just a couple things. Next day, he ate an apple instead of a cookie. Wrote that down. After 2 or 3 days, he discovered that he wasn't hungry, he didn't need the sugar, but it was the socializing with his friends that was making him happy. So that was his reward. If you look at the chart, which would be on page number 4, here is his updated chart. So now he's identified, not the cue, still unknown, but we have the routine down, and his reward is socializing with his friends. So the last thing he needs to do is find what his cue is. And in order to find that out, he just asked himself a series of questions every day before he went down to buy that cookie. Where are you? What time is it? How are you feeling right now? Who is with you? And what are you doing right before you decide to go get this cookie? So every day he wrote that down, and he compared his answers over 3 days. And he found that nothing was the same except for the time. It was always around 3:30. Therefore, his cue in this case was the time. So if you flip over one more time to page number 6, we now have a completed habit loop. 3:30 is the cue, the routine is the cookie, and the reward is socializing with his friends. And the last part of his plan is he needs to have a plan on how to change this routine of eating these cookies because he needs to lose some weight. What he decided to do was, instead of eating the cookie, the routine is going to be at 3:30 exactly every day. He's going to stand up, he's going to look around and find somebody to talk to. Hey, there's Gary! And he's going to talk to Gary for 10 minutes. And then he's going to repeat that. He's going to do that the next day. He's going to set the alarm on his watch to do this. And that's what he did. Now, sometimes every day it didn't happen. He cheated a couple times. He did go get that cookie. Had a meeting. But he consistently tried the next day to repeat his routine. And eventually, his watch broke. But it didn't matter because at 3:30, he automatically got up and started looking, hey, there's Stella. Hey, how are you, Stella? So he successfully replaced a bad habit with a good habit. If you flip over to page number 8, now here's his new habit loop. Yay! He's got a cue at 3:30, he's got a routine, and his reward is talking to his friends. So in conclusion, what do you need to remember about this? Cue, routine, reward. If you can identify what your habit loop components are, you can change any bad habit. So what is your habit loop? Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Madam Tower, please give 1 minute to everybody for the evaluation. So for our guests, every time when the speaker have a speech, we have a speaker evaluation form, so you can give some feedback or some